Welcome to the Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past broadcasts are podcasts. Find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions and comments. Please use DJ at ArtistFirst.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here they are, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And I'm Michael Lyons.
Mm-hmm. And I'm Margaret.
And that's it, right?
That's it.
That's it, because we'd rather be anywhere else. You know where we'd rather be? You know, this is the God's honest truth. We'd rather be staring at some Caribbean waters right now. Wouldn't that be true?
Oh, so it's pretty.
It is very, very pretty.
Very relaxing.
It's very relaxing, but we're giving all that up to be here with you people. Because we love you.
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And that is the theme of our show tonight, is the unconscious thought, which runs through, the thought rather that runs through a lot of people's unconscious minds, is I'd rather be somewhere else. I think that's, and I would say it's an unspoken thought, but you can, if you're talking to someone, you can often feel, that they'd rather be not talking to you. They'd rather be somewhere else.
I'd rather be somewhere else.
And in people's day-to-day lives, and you may catch yourself doing this once in a while, you just say, well, I'd just rather be doing something else. I'd rather not be in this particular situation. I'd rather, be home or with my feet up or doing anything else but what I'm doing right now. And I think the theme that we're going to prosecute here is that that's not only incorrect, it's impossible to be anywhere else but where you are right now, in the truest sense of the now. And there's a precious and essential component. There's a precious and essential thing. Thing's the wrong word. That once you realize that particular sentiment is the way that you escape the feeling of you'd rather be somewhere else, if you know what I mean. That it's sort of it becomes a if you let that take over your life, then you're never ever content, no matter what you're doing.
Well, I think the baseline of it is the question rises, why am I here? And then I'd rather be somewhere else.
Mm.
And when that thought crosses your mind, you really are, well, I guess the question would be, who is the I in this sentence that would rather be somewhere else?
That's a good question.
Because have you split yourself into a couple of different consciousnesses? What's going on here? The I'd rather be somewhere else means that you are sitting there saying, I didn't consciously choose this.
Well, and even furthermore, the moment that you're in, which is the only moment you have, and this is, this harkens back to Tully, although we have a different muse tonight directly, it harkens back to Tully. In the moment that you're in, which is exactly where you are being, the I that you're extracting from that moment is not your being, is not your consciousness. It is a construct which denies the current moment and would like to be anywhere else, the past, the future, in a different situation of some kind. It rejects your being in favor of a fantasy. And that particular sentiment is completely unconscious. It is the definition of not being conscious of the moment of now, is to literally focus on that which is not now. Something which cannot be because you're right here, right now.
Well, when people are in that state, they go immediately into memory of where they had been before, or projecting forward into where I'd like to be right now, and not taking in the moment where there is no judgment. Maybe that's the best way to put it, because I'd rather be somewhere else is a judgment. I don't want to be here. I want to be somewhere else. Judgment call, meaning that there's got to be another place somewhere else that I really would like to be.
Implicit in that is a couple of things, just what you said. The judgment is where I am right now is somewhere that I don't want to be. I don't like this moment of now. It isn't what I wanted. And this is, again, the extrapolation of the I, is that the ego says, this is not what I want. And I want something else. And maybe that becomes, well, someone has to get it for me, or, I have to get away from this particular moment to, not focus on what's happening around me, but only focus on what I want to happen, what I like to happen.
What I would like to happen.
And then also what I don't like about this situation. So you sit there just identifying, I don't like this, and I know this one's too slow, this one's too fast, this one's, I can't stand this one's boring, going on and on and on about being in the moment of now. And the ego busies itself and feeds itself on not liking and judging those that are around it, the situation that it finds itself in, the situations that it would like to be in other than this one, denial of the situation, it's not really happening, I don't care what it is, it's not happening, I can't hear you, and in essence fantasizing about, why, motives come into here. So, well, the only reason I'm here is that this one did something, and this one cut me off, or this boss told me to do this, and this, my spouse this, and this. Everyone is plugged into the narrative about why you're not happy, why the ego isn't happy, and you start a whole, passion play inside your head, fitting in everyone into their little corners. And who is that? Who is the star? And the major, the significant player in all of this is the ego. The ego is center stage, main character. Everybody else in the play, everyone else in the ego's moment, which is not now, is thinking about the ego, talking about it, plotting against it.
Well, yeah, because you're in this drama of what I like, what I don't like, who likes me and who doesn't like me. There never seems to be, this middle of the road of, well, there's no reaction to you. Maybe that would be worse for the ego. There's no reaction to you at all.
Much worse. The ego doesn't want to be ignored. That's death.
Well, acknowledged maybe is a better word. They want the acknowledgement because at that point it feels like it exists. Without the acknowledgement, the feedback loop, the drama, it feels like it doesn't exist unless that drama is playing out in front of it, which is a very scary thing if you think about it, because you feel like you're being annihilated. There's a deep internal reaction to believing that you're going to be annihilated. You will not exist. It's not spoken. It goes, I guess you would call that the true survival mechanism, that you fight to survive. But if you translate it into you being your ego, your likes, your dislikes, the way you think, your opinions, anything that's contrary to your opinions or your likes or your dislikes is trying to destroy me. So it triggers that attack reaction, the fight or flight. And people lose it. they just lose it. They just feel like they're being taken down or
threatened.
Yes, it's like they're going to be wiped out like they've never existed. And that is a horrifying feeling, a vast emptiness. If anyone has ever felt that, it's just this abyss. It just goes down and down and down, and there's no bottom.
Well, and so this is what motivates the ego, but it starts with this, rather innocuous sentiment of I'd rather be somewhere else, or and inherent in all that is that you have a choice of being somewhere else, and the actual let's say revelation is that you really don't. You have to be right where you are right now. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be somewhere else at another moment of now. Of course you can. In fact, you're always somewhere else in the moment of now. So those two things are sort of intertwined with each other, sort of a yin-yang thing. You cannot be anywhere else than where you are now, so you might as well enjoy it. You might as well be there. But people don't, the ego doesn't like that. That doesn't give it any control whatsoever. Let me just finish the other part of it is that the ego, in fantasizing about not being somewhere else, doesn't realize that it could act to be in a different moment of now, that it will absolutely be in another moment of now, in another moment of now. So without, when focusing on what you don't want, you miss the fact that the now continuously evolves around you, and that you could perceive it and be in it fully. I'm sorry, no, you were saying.
Well, just that if you see the emotions and the thought patterns of your ego, and you're not, how do I say this? They become a filter to experiencing your being state. What does that mean? Instead of being open to what is unfolding in front of you and around you, and having no judgment about it, having no opinion about it. Oh.
Already you can hear how can I not have an opinion?
Well, you can start by not naming it. Just think about that for a second. When you are in a situation, something is in front of you, your first choice is usually to name what's in front of you. Cat, dog, or if it's, a pet or a person. And then with that name comes all the other things that you have experienced with them and all these other judgments that you've gone through with that. When you realize all of that becomes a filter through which you are interacting with the other, whether it is a pet, whether it is a person, whatever it may be in your environment. That's your filter. So if it's someone you've encountered, a friend, and you've had an argument, perceiving that person through this argument, a disagreement of some kind, narrows everything down. Mm-hmm. You will only interact according to the flavor of the argument that you had. But when you're operating in the mode of being, the argument is superfluous. It's out there. It's something that happened. But you're more interested in interacting with the soul of the person, not the event that happened. People have a tendency to interact with others through an event. The event becomes the foundation of how they see this person. It's colored. Oh, it's always this. Oh, this person always does that. Oh, this person is, how many times have we done that to complete strangers? We haven't even had an interaction with them, but according to, some cultural bias, those people always do it this way. They don't listen, or they're very bold, or they're very quiet, so it becomes a filter.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of, well, this is the soul that's standing in front of me. What is the state of the soul of that person? Animals are real easy. You can interact with the animal. There's no mental thought going there. It's like, oh, hi, you're here, great. Just back and forth. Feed me or pet me or whatever. It's all, that. Or even like life around you, plants, the trees, that they're just what they are. They have no opinion. Whether you're good, bad, or indifferent, you're just there. But when it comes to making or remembering past events, which is what we humans have been designed for, let's face it. We're designed to remember and project forward. Maybe that's not going to be a good idea. Maybe this would be better. But when that particular talent that we have becomes the overriding reason to be, I know how to run my life. I know how to run everybody's life. Just listen to me.
Listen to me.
This is a problem.
Yeah.
Because what's happened is you yourself have shut down the vastness of who you are. You're forcing yourself to operate within this teeny tiny parameters of, well, I know how this is going to go. And these are the guidelines, and this is how we avoid getting screwed by this person or taken advantage of by that one. Or it's fascinating. The I'd rather be somewhere else is usually like, I really don't want to deal with this right now. And mostly because of all the stress that it brings up. But when you realize that's happening, that could be a red flag for you to say, wait a minute, what's actually happening? Mm-hmm. I'd rather be somewhere, okay, aversion. I'm feeling aversion to this. What is this from? Why is this feeling rising up in me? And you realize that you're not talking to the person's soul. You're talking to this face or this projection. And you just don't want to be there, especially if it's someone you care about. You realize that you got to go back to the love. Doesn't matter what was said or done. You come back to your love relationship between the two of you and say, okay, I don't understand what's going on. I don't pretend to understand everything. Okay, who knows? I'll find out later. But my connection here, whether it be a direct connection face-to-face or a heart-to-heart energetic, when you're praying for these people, that expression is key. That holds your heart steady, no angst, no drama. It's like, okay, yeah, no, doesn't matter. I'm not naming this. I understand that this byplay between us, our heart speaks to the other heart back and forth in a way that I can't put into words, okay? That's the other thing. People want to use words. This is what I mean by naming.
Yeah, I mean, well...
If I gone on, sorry.
No, all right, there was so much good stuff in there. I was writing down furiously as you went along, but I love it. I want to start at the beginning of that because it was, Margaret goes off on these riffs, and I just have to keep up. But I'm gonna unpack it for me, and then maybe it'll help help everyone else, or who knows, maybe everyone's there. But this idea that you just casually threw out there of the event filter is really it's just struck me. I wrote it down like 3 times. And then what you kind of wound up there, and at the end was, in essence, how you get past the event filter, and that's sort of the forgiveness. Forgiveness is the way around the event filter, but just to start there, the event filter.
Okay.
So I'd rather be somewhere else. Well, let's say I'd rather interact with someone else, because you see someone coming into your field of perception in the moment of now. You see some guy, you go. And you aptly named that you could apply this to a complete stranger you've never interacted with, but this person you've had an interaction with, and the ego roars up and says, "I know exactly what's going to happen, because I remember everything that happened here, and I don't want to talk to this person because they're going to bring up this and they're going to say that, and I remember the last time we talked and we had all this big blowout, and I was mad and they were mad, and all this comes rushing back into the moment of now, taking you into the story about what's going to happen and how they feel and what they've been thinking about. Meanwhile, this person yet hasn't even seen you yet.
Hasn't even opened his mouth.
Haven't you? You've caught sight across a crowded shopping mall of some person you saw 7 years ago, and you at that time you disagreed over a croissant, and wow, the ego's like, oh my God, they're going to bring up the croissant. Meanwhile, they're like, roses are fun. They're just lollygagging along. They haven't even caught sight of you yet, and you find yourself. And this happens to people. You start figuring out what you're going to say when they say something. I'm going to say this. When they say that, I'm going to say this. And I'm going to say this, and I'm not going to bring up that because that's that thing that's gone. And you're in complete spin. That's the event filter. The event filter is the ego's mechanism for seizing control of the moment of now and taking it in every different direction, because it literally accesses instantly, it seems, all the things about this particular person or this particular event, how it happened before, how it might happen before, I heard about this, that, and Bitcoin and stuff. I mean, anything could happen, right? So the event filter, which is built out of all these diaphanous imaginary things, this imaginary, the offense that happened 17 years ago, the people that look like this, all that stuff spins up into your head, gets your heart pumping, gets your muscles all tightened up, you're getting all hot under the collar, or you're getting ready to run or hide or duck or all this stuff. And meanwhile, you're about to step into an open manhole cover because you're not in the moment of now, and the person that you think is going to approach you is completely oblivious of you, has not even caught sight of you, doesn't care, hasn't thought about you in the last 17 years. And if you were in the moment of now, and this is sort of what Margaret was saying too, if you really just perceived the actual person, you might say, wow, George looks like he's been through a lot in the last 17 years. Mm-hmm. Or, let's just open a conversation and say, hi, gosh, I haven't seen you in forever. And you might completely be a different person. It actually, and this is the truth, is that George of 17 years ago is not George that you see here today. 17 years have gone by, or just the last moment of now. You're dealing in every moment of now, and this sounds weird, you're a completely new person, because you're one now older than you were before, and they're a completely new person because they're one now older than they were. And the world is completely different than the last moment of now, which is inaccessible, and the next moment of now, which is also inaccessible. In this moment of now, you run into George, and George says, I can't believe I ran into you. I've been thinking about you and wondering if I could ever, whatever, or gosh, I'm so glad to see someone I know. I've all the things that every particular interaction that you thought you would have with George is not what's going to happen. But the ego has, as Margaret just said, and this is so important, the event filter has narrowed it down. It has said, this is what's going to happen. And then if that happens, I'm going to do this. And I've got it all planned out. And you're not in the moment of now. And you've plugged your friend George or whomever into 17 different roles that George is going to do, none of that's true. And all of it's taking all of the joy and all of the experience out of the moment now and filtering it in to what the ego thinks is going to happen. And the last thing that, there were lots of other things, but the last thing I want to just bring forward is when you said that can be your trigger, or rather that can be your handle. When you suddenly say to yourself, I'm making up all these stories about George. And if you just go within, you go internal and say, in awareness, say, none of those things, let's just let the moment unfold. And I think, I've said this many times about you. You see people you haven't seen in 5 years, and you just open your arms up and hug them. And sometimes they're just completely shocked because they've got a whole story going in their heads about, oh my God, Margaret's going to say this, and I'm going to say that. And you just go, I'm here. I don't care that 17 years ago or last week, you took the last cookie or whatever. I'm gonna just be with you now, and that is the antidote to the event filter. Is that you the old saying used to be like, bygones be bygones. The past is dead. It's immutable. It can't be changed.
Right.
And one of the greatest things that has come out of many different modes of thought and many different religions, the Ho'oponopono or the forgiveness of Christianity, is that you just let the past be, let the dead past bury its dead, to quote Longfellow, and be in the moment of now, again in that same poem, and realize that those things that happened before happened. They inform the moment of who you are. They were experiences. But if you hold on to them, then you've got this gigantic event filter which can't let you experience the true existence that you're in right now. And so that's your warning system. Like, I'm making up a bunch of stories here. Let's stop all that nonsense, and let's say hi to George and see what happens. Maybe George still hates us, but that's on him, not on me.
Yeah. No, I mean, I did have a friend, this was many years ago, and we wound up separating because it's a difference of opinion, maybe. I approached life way differently than she did. And she is one of these it's just unique individuals. Love her. Very bright. And after Chris had died, and we wound up putting that book together. I remember the last time I had seen her, I had given her one of the books to say, yeah. She had asked, well, I'd like to read that. Sure, I have a copy. And I had not heard from her years after that. Came across her in I guess it was a pharmacy. And it was just such a surprise because it was it's just a person that you don't expect to see in a store. He's one of these very athletic,
active,
outdoorsy, constant. It's the last thing she wants to be is in an enclosed space. I was so surprised to see her, and so good to see her. And I just remember looking at her, going, so good to see you, and just a hug. And it was a couple of things, because that first instant of eye contact was interesting, because she realized who I was, and I could see those little filters were trying to engage. But I was more interested in speaking with her soul. I wanted to see her because she's just, her heart is so good. Differences of opinion? Her heart is so good. So that hug was a heart-to-heart hug. And that's all that mattered. And it was one of these moments where, she was looking for something in the pharmacy. So we started talking about stuff lightly and helping her find what this item she was looking for. But it was very interesting because you just saw that byplay of, I could go into all this other thought that I had for this woman, but there she is. She's so happy to see me. I guess. You see you. How are you? It's a very simple, direct contact. It's like interacting with small children. They're just happy that you're there. And that's how I felt. I'm just so happy that you're there. And let's face it, life can be really hard. And the biggest blessing you have is to be able to see someone who smiles at you. With there's no judgment involved. Like, yeah, whatever. All right. If someone's got to cling to that, it's like, no, just let's have a hug with heart to heart. And then let's see what unfolds. Because that heart-to-heart connection, when you realize that is the foundation of your being state, those are the roots that you have to set into the ground. And the ground has got to be that type of love. Where it doesn't matter what events have happened. You care about the soul. And whatever the outcome, whatever way the interaction has got to be for this other person, that's fine. But the ground is there, and the roots are deep. So deep that nothing can wither that relationship. If you think of that relationship as a plant, and the roots are deep in love, even if there's drought or seasons happening, it doesn't matter because that relationship still lives because the roots are deep.
Again, you touch on many things, but so this is the interesting thing about that is the ego wants to extract, using its event filter, it wants to extract it wants to extract and quantify and categorize and put a relationship into these boxes that it loves to put everything into. And then when you see that person, it gathers as many boxes as it possibly can and constructs a stage and constructs a whole narrative and constructs everything and starts to run into that direction. And the antidote to that can be time sometimes. Some people could say, well, that all that's true, but it's so many events have gone by that even the mental facility can say, well, gosh, it's been so long, probably that's all in the past and I don't need to talk about that or bring it all up. But that's still a construct. What you just said about the roots, or rather about the relationship, is that, okay, and we were talking now about people and not necessarily things,
right,
and not necessarily events, because these are all in the milieu of what can happen to you on a daily basis. But when you're talking about people, especially someone you know or have known in the past, and you maybe have had some sort of a separation, even a perfectly benign separation, it wasn't a big blowout or a fight or anything, it just was, you just didn't see them for a very, very long time. You may have had that experience, to run into someone you haven't seen in a very, very long time. Maybe they were, grammar school friends or something, even further back, who knows how long. And you pick up right where you left off, as though you had seen them yesterday.
Right.
The reason you can do that is that the roots of your relationship have nothing to do with time. They are an eternal thing. When you have a real relationship, it has an eternal component to it. And if you meet each person as the either the eternal of, I've never met this person before, so let's just look at them and perceive them as who they are, as an emanation of source, as in the heart moment of now, or I met this person, it doesn't matter how long ago, and I know exactly, my heart knows exactly how we connected. You don't know how the heart remembers these things, but it does. It knows exactly how you connected with this person, how deep the relationship was, why you even had a relationship to begin with. And if you let that resonance, this is, I want to just pause for a minute. Every time you meet somebody, there's a resonance between you. People say you pick up their vibe. Well, that's a perfect thing to say, because the vibe of somebody is how you resonate with them. So you let that be the guide. And all the events which the ego wants to bring in, this and that and the other thing, and they did this and blah, 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 all that just goes, it really literally vanishes. And what you see is the person, regardless of how many years have passed and whether they've got wrinkles now or whatever it is, whatever trials have beset them, yes, they bear all that experience, and you can talk about that, but the vibe is the same. It reminds me of the way people say, and this, you've probably said this once in a while yourself, you look yourself in the mirror and say, I don't feel whatever the age is. I don't feel 64. I feel like I felt when I was, 12 or 18 or whatever it is, because the vibe of you, the you that you be with all the time, you, the actual you,
your being,
hasn't changed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
You were the same you when you were incarnate in flesh, because that's your vibe. That's who you are. And the relationships that you have at the vibe level don't matter. Time doesn't matter to them. Events don't matter to them. Events matter to the ego. Time matters to the ego. All these stories and what happened and how it happened and when we did this and all matter to the ego, because that's how it lives. It lives as a event-driven, sort of parasite, if you will, and all the stories that it runs itself on and all the emotion it finds up in those stories. But if you realize that the actual relationship you have with the person is based on the vibe the resonance that you had between you, all that falls away. Now, can you talk about all this Greek? You can do anything you want. You can use the ego properly to talk about past events, to plan a future event. Go right ahead. But the relationship isn't based on those things. And to allow the ego to drive yourself, your perceptions into what it wants you to see, or how it feels about something, or whether it likes it or doesn't like it, is to allow it to cloud the vibe. This one's going to do this and that. All the things that people do, they all kind of spin up into a giant knitted narrative. And then you don't see, when people are in that mode, and truly lost in that, you can't talk to them. Because you start to say something and they turn their nose up and they walk away and say, well, I'm never going to talk to you again, because you did this 17 years ago and I remember, and you're like, okay. Oh my. Or you can get, that's the is that so filter too. We've talked about it many times. But the is that so, not filter, but the cutting through all those clouds, the question of is that so, is also a way of slicing through all the ego nonsense. Because all those stories, if you jump into them and spin your defenses and your accusations and what you did and I'll never forgive you either and you go off into the ego maelstrom, neither one of you is in the moment of now then. So, again, just to come back, because you said it very beautifully, when you feel yourself running as though the ego is going to start, the story's going, you just basically look the ego in the eye and say, no, I'm going to meet this person on the vibe level, on the heart level, and you just hush up there, We're not going to go down that story. We're going to just say, hi, I'm so glad to see you. That's the vibe. My heart and yours have that connection.
We're here.
We're here. You often say that. So we're here right now. You can see this happen in situations, not necessarily in a pharmacy, but when you put people together in a situation which kind of engenders this community. We often talk about people when you see a whole bunch of people just digging holes in the sand on the beach. That's a now moment. That's a being moment, and nobody has a name. Everybody's in trunks or swimsuits. There isn't, I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm a this, I'm a that, I have a Bitcoin, whatever. None of it. We're just digging holes in the sand on the beach and being together. And you might run into somebody, this happened to us recently on a trip, which you had seen them in another situation and completely unrelated, but you're like, hi, I remember you. You were on this thing with us. And they're like, yeah. Like a couple of these strangers are going, yeah, you're the people that were next to us on the thing. Yeah. And the vibe means that you see them, not as, you're wearing different clothes and you've got makeup on and now your hair is in a different way and I think you're this and you're that. No. Those are all the ego spins on that. But hey, remember the thing? The hole we dug together on the beach? Yeah. Wasn't that cool? Yes, it was cool. It was the vibe of that. It becomes eternal. And it's what you actually remember if you cast your ego back, you say, well, we went here, we went there, and we did this, and we did that, and then we bought this thing and that thing. And no. We had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
You start to struggle for words because quantifying it and putting words on top of it kind of starts to tear it to pieces. You say, well, it wasn't really that. It wasn't really this. It was good. But if you just say, man, we had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
You're remembering all the things you remember, but the vibe is right there, knowing that, yes, we did. Regardless of each individual universes of experience or the names or anything else, that's what you remember, and that's what you'll carry forward, and that's what 20 years from now, you'll walk into that, some room, and you'll see this person you haven't seen in 20 years and say, remember that great time we had? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was super great. Beyond belief.
Right. You remember when?
Well, maybe not at that time, but yes, remember not exactly when, but just that, yeah, we had this somewhat of an eternal moment together. That's what you're doing at that time is you're pushing away the mind, pushing away the like or don't like, pushing away the tear it into pieces and name it, and you're just being. And when you're being together with a person, it becomes an eternal. It's a memory, but it's not really a memory. It's a moment.
Well, it's focusing in on the moment as it unfolds. And when you're focusing on the moment as it unfolds, you're not naming what's happening. You're experiencing it. It sort of reminds me of the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Oh, that's very good. You're right.
Where you cannot define an electron in a certain position and at the same time
its speed.
Tell what speed or energy it has.
Right.
You can't discern both. So in other words, taking a step back from that, you can't be concerned with naming the event. Like some people, it's very interesting to me because they're sitting there and they're like, well, are we having a good time?
Let's make a list.
Well, no. Just that you sit there and you go, wait, why are you naming this right now?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you interacting with this? And I always am a little hesitant when people are always taking pictures because it's like you're naming the event as opposed to being in the event, experiencing what it is. In fact, what is his name? Krishnamurti, I believe his name is, believe that if a child, a young one, is for the first time seeing something like a bird, and then you come forward and you say, well, that's a bird. That's the name of that. Well, that's a cardinal. That's a bird. The child will forever, at that point, never experience the bird again.
Mm-hmm.
Because now you've given it the filter of bird, cardinal, this, or red. Okay, that's what that is. It's a red bird, these sequence of words and sounds. Instead of, there is the life that is flying down with this incredible color and song, and letting the child experiencing it and have the experience of it.
Mm.
He was quite correct in that, because this is what we train ourselves to do, thinking that we're going to be helping. We're going to help. We're going to give you the words all the freaking time.
Mm.
And it's like, you think you're helping. You really believe that you're helping at that point. But allowing the child to experience what it is in front of you, like digging the hole. You give a kid a shovel and on the beach, and that's immediately what they do. They're not going to tell you that, this is going to be a 3x3 hole that I'm going to do, and then, when they get older, they'll start drawing up plans. Mm-hmm. Let's face it. But the initial thing, a child's first experience of the beach is usually like they stand on the sand, and some of them like the feeling and some don't.
Can't remember that.
So allowing yourself to understand that as human beings, yeah, we do multitasking. I've heard people say, oh, yeah, I can multitask better than anybody else. Okay. But get right down to the core of it. You can only have that one experience at a time in a sequence. Multitasking means that you figured out how to make your events take turns so that they appear in front of you in a sequence, but that you're trying to do this equal time of spreading your attention. What happens if you do not name the event or what's happening to you at all? No name for it. That usually blows people's minds. Mm-hmm. They find it very, very hard not to name an event. And I remember some person asking me, well, what do you mean? In other words, you don't label it good or bad? I was like, no, labeling it at all.
Right.
No name. And I was thinking about that before. It's like to exist in a place where you're consciously not naming. You're observing, truly just observing it. And that's a whole new world that opens up. You do feel like you're an infant opening your eyes for the first time. But when you wind up not naming it, you establish your roots, or your being in your being state. It's choosing a being state instead of the naming state. And it's interesting because most of us don't even realize that those are actually two different states.
Mm.
A lot of people believe that naming state is the being state. It's like, no.
Mm.
No. That's the first.
That's the gateway to ego
right.
And the mind.
Right.
Is naming.
Is that naming state. There's nothing wrong with it.
No.
Okay? This is not a pejorative thing. It's just understanding the tendency the mind has to want to take over. And people always feel like they're missing out on something. That's what I find fascinating. And they haven't really searched into that feeling. Like, why do I feel like I'm missing out on something? And naming an event puts blinders on you because of the name. The name is actually the blinders, and you can only see what are within these blinders.
Right.
Without the name, anything is possible.
See, this is exactly the same as the event filters, and this is what Tolle says, and what you just said is exactly true. Is that when you name something, and I forget the name of the person that you mentioned, Krishnamurti. And again, this is the gateway to the mind. The mind needs names. And mind, what is a name but a concept? The logos is the thought, and the thought comes. The word is the beginning of the thought. So now, again, Margaret just said it, but I'll say it again. The word is not bad, nor is it good. It just is, and you can actually observe the word without naming it. Interestingly enough, the logos is perfectly. There's a being state of logos too.
Right.
But I don't want to confuse this. The important thing that you just said is that names become the way into the mind taking over, and the ego starts to gather emotions and starts to tell stories, and the mind and the ego go back and forth like crazy people and gather as much emotion as they can, and you're no longer perceiving. You don't see the bird. You might see, birds. I'm afraid of birds because birds once, bit my toe, and then there was a red bird, and you don't see the bird anymore. You see fear, you see an event, you see a bad memory or a good one or whatever it is. All those things cloud perception. If you don't name it, and this is something that consciously Tolle teaches people to do, is to remove yourself from naming. Margaret just said it, and you used to lead people in these sorts of meditations. Stop naming. Stop even naming yourself. Stop saying I. If you stop naming and you literally just perceive, there's a tremendous quietness because you short-circuit the mind and the ego's constant litany of naming. You stop the mind from naming things, it gets very quiet because that's all it really does is name things. And if you stop the ego from picking up the names and then grabbing events and then starting to run stories and grabbing emotions, you start right at the very beginning of it. You say, I'm not going to name anything. I'm just going to be and observe. And we talked about it a little bit in here, but that is always there. You're always able to drop into the non-naming, experiential, I just was born state. Mm-hmm. But the moment you start to think about it, you're not in it anymore, because thinking cannot encompass being. But being, all your consciousness has within it thought and emotion and ego, and every other blessed thing is within the consciousness. But when you are being and are perceiving, you can't think about it. The Buddhists have it, the Zen Buddhists have it too. They put themselves into a state of mind, a state of being, which thoughts come in, and they treat them like, the analogy is a marble just rolling along and then dropping off the edge. You don't engage, you don't name. Engaging with a thought is naming with it. It's letting it fill your consciousness. It's letting it talk to you, and you talk back, and da-da-da-da-da.
Constant.
And these things are incredibly powerful and beautiful things about human beings, is that we can do these things. We can have these amazingly intricate dialogues about how to do something and why to do something and where to do something and all the things and the sciences. But when the relief you have when you look at a vast ocean or the depths of space or interact with a tree or an animal, is because if you don't name it and you just be with it, it's like you're breathing air after not being able to for however long, or the feeling the warmth of the sunshine on you, and just letting it bake into your being and not think for a moment about what it is. And those moments are blissful and sweet because we need that.
Right.
We need that. And the mind kind of doesn't allow you to do that.
Well, there's an analogy. Well, going back to what you were saying about the word, or logos, understanding that is part of the creation of this universe.
Mm-hmm.
And you go back to the sound of the universe, which is Om. And they look at language as interruptions of that sound.
Mm-hmm.
The consonants form interruptions of the Om, and this is how you get words. But when you do this, when you understand that it's the experience of consciousness that you're concentrating on, what you're focusing on is the silence between the words. Because Om is a cycle. You have your opening, the height, closing the mouth, and then silence. There's 4 parts to it. And the idea is to become aware of the space between the words, the space between creation, space between your concepts, not to be so involved with the consonants that you are producing, the naming. And that also brings just a quick thought. That whole thing of name it and claim it gives a whole different spin to name it and claim it. Because what it's saying to you is you got to name it, meaning that you're putting these parameters out there, these concepts, and you got to manifest everything through this mind of yours or your feelings, or it's like you're not participating with creation that is around you already. You have not opened up enough to embrace the creation around you. And you're sitting there going, well, I'm going to name it, I'm going to want this, and this is that, this vibe, and it's got to be. And it's all based on what I want. Which is what? Your ego. Your id, ego, superego. That's your id. I want.
Well, and just to come back to where we began, the I'd rather be somewhere else is that filter. It's maybe the basic filter that the events that are happening right now, and not even the people, but just everything that's in the current moment of now. If you start to name it and judge it and say, I don't want and I do want this, and if only this, and this one is after me to do that, that's right at the beginning. As soon as you say, I'd rather be somewhere else, you've engaged the mind, the ego, the boxes, the emotions, the stories, everything, the judgments,
meditation.
And the moment of now, the actual vibe of what's happening right now, the person, the relationship, the event, the sunrise, you see none of it.
And I believe we've reached the end of our hour.
I'd rather be right here.
I would rather be here. And I'm Margaret.
And I'm Michael.
And thank you for being with us.